Welcome to Life Stories. Have you ever been underestimated, dismissed, or made to feel invisible? Imagine being mocked by your own in-laws, treated as if you had nothing to offer, until one moment changes everything. Tonight's story is about a woman who spent years being overlooked, only to reveal a truth that left her husband's family speechless. A tale of resilience, self-worth, and the power of proving yourself without seeking approval. Stay with us as we dive into this incredible journey of transformation. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to begin today's story with Life Stories. I had grown accustomed to the routine, sitting at the long, polished dining table at my in-laws' house, nodding politely while they talked over me, around me, as if I weren't there at all. It had been this way for years. Every family gathering felt like a test I never quite passed. A quiet battle I fought without weapons. David, my husband, was always the center of attention. He was their pride and joy, the ambitious, successful son who could do no wrong. His mother, Margaret, would beam with admiration as he recounted his latest business ventures. His father would nod approvingly. And his sister, Jessica, would chime in with exaggerated enthusiasm. The conversations always revolved around David, his achievements, his growing empire, the future he was building. And then, at some point in the evening, they would turn to me. "So, Emily," Margaret would say, her tone light but condescending. "How's life treating you these days?" That was always the question. Innocent enough on the surface. But it carried an undercurrent of judgment. They never really wanted to know how I was doing. What they wanted was confirmation that I was still the same woman they had always assumed I was. Someone who had no real ambition. No real accomplishments. Nothing to contribute to their world of success. Jessica would smirk, swirling the wine in her glass. Must be nice, though, not having to work, just taking it easy while David handles everything. I would smile tightly, swallow the sting of their words, and say nothing. I had learned, over the years, that speaking up only led to more dismissive remarks. If I defended myself, they would laugh it off or worse, act as if I were overreacting. David, sitting beside me, never intervened. He never told them to stop. He would glance at me with an apologetic look, a fleeting moment of recognition. But then he'd continue talking to his father about his next deal. I had spent years in this role, the quiet, supportive wife, the woman in the background, the one who was always overlooked. They didn't know that I had built something of my own. That while David was making his mark in the corporate world, I was quietly laying the foundation for my own dreams. At first, I told myself it didn't matter. That I didn't need their approval. That I was content with knowing the truth. But deep down, it did matter. Not because I wanted their praise, but because their words chipped away at something inside me, at my confidence, at my self-worth. It wasn't just that they didn't see me. It was that David didn't see me either. I had spent countless nights watching him work, listening to him strategize, offering my thoughts when he asked. I had supported him, believed in him, stood by him as he built his career. But he had never stopped to ask about mine. He had never thought to wonder what I was doing in the quiet hours when he was out sealing deals and making plans. One evening, I overheard a conversation between David and his father. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop. But as I passed by the study, I heard my name. "I don't know why she just doesn't get it," David was saying, his tone exasperated. "She's not cut out for the kind of work I do. She doesn't have the drive, the ambition." I froze. The words hit me like a slap. For years, I had been silently working, building, sacrificing, and yet, in his eyes, I was still just the woman who stayed home. The woman who had nothing to offer beyond being his wife. He had never seen the long hours, the careful planning, the risks I had taken. He had never noticed how hard I had worked to create something of my own. That night, I lay awake next to him, staring at the ceiling, feeling something inside me shift. I had been waiting for him to see me, to acknowledge me, to recognize my worth. But he never would, not unless I made him, not unless I made all of them see. And so, I made a decision. The next family dinner would be different. The next family dinner was set at Henderson's Steakhouse, a place David's family loved for its elegance and exclusivity. The restaurant had an old-world charm, dark wooden interiors, chandeliers casting a warm glow over the polished floors, and a quiet hum of conversation from well-dressed patrons. It was the kind of place Margaret liked to frequent, where she could subtly show off her family's status. As we walked in, everything felt the same as always. Margaret led the way, her head held high, greeting the maitre d' with the kind of familiarity that suggested she believed she belonged here more than most. Jessica, wearing a sleek designer dress, was already deep in conversation with David, asking about his latest project. His father, a reserved but quietly influential man, gave me a polite nod before turning his full attention to his son. I took my usual seat, watching as the evening played out exactly as I had predicted. David's voice filled the space, detailing his most recent business venture while his family listened in admiration. They spoke about stocks, investments, real estate, subjects I knew well. Yet they never thought to include me in the discussion. Then, as expected, Margaret turned to me. "And what about you, Emily? Still enjoying your little break from the working world?" Jessica chuckled. "Must be nice to not have to worry about things like deadlines and clients." I felt my fingers tighten around the stem of my wineglass. But I remained calm. I had played this game for years. And tonight, I would win. I simply smiled. "Yes, actually, things have been going very well for me." David barely glanced at me, too caught up in his own world. They had already decided I was unremarkable. So why would they care what I had to say? Then, just as Jessica raised her glass for a toast in David's honor, the waiter arrived with the bill. I watched as he walked past David, past his father, past Margaret's expectant expression. He didn't hesitate, didn't fumble. He simply placed the check directly in front of me, addressing me with polite professionalism. "This is for you, ma'am." The room fell into an unnatural silence. Margaret's brow furrowed. "Excuse me, why would you hand that to her?" The waiter didn't even blink. "Because she's the owner." Jessica's glass nearly slipped from her hand. Margaret's expression froze, confusion and disbelief clouding her sharp gaze. David turned to look at me fully for the first time that evening, his usually composed face now uncertain. I took my time. I ran my fingers over the edge of the bill, letting the moment stretch, letting them process what had just happened. Then, finally, I looked up and met their eyes. "I own this restaurant," I said. And just like that, everything changed. For the first time in all the years I had known them. Margaret, Jessica, and David's father were silent. Their usual smugness, their air of self-importance, had vanished, replaced by stunned disbelief. Even David, always so sure of himself, sat frozen, his mouth slightly open as if he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. The weight of the moment pressed down on all of us. But for me, it felt like something else, like freedom. Margaret was the first to recover. Her voice sharp. "You own this place?" "Yes." I met her gaze evenly, letting the truth settle between us. "I built it from the ground up. Every decision, every investment, every success, it's all mine." Jessica let out a short, breathless laugh, as if trying to make sense of what she had just heard. "But how? When?" David never mentioned anything about this. "David." I turned to him then, studying the expression on his face. It wasn't pride or admiration. It wasn't even understanding. It was regret, a slow, creeping realization that for years, he had overlooked me, dismissed me, underestimated me. "You never asked," I said simply. "None of you did." David's father cleared his throat, his voice measured but strained. "And, what exactly does this mean?" I tilted my head slightly. "It means that while you all sat here believing I was just the quiet wife with nothing to contribute, I was building something real, something successful, something that, ironically, has hosted your family dinners more times than you can count." Jessica's expression darkened, as if she wanted to argue, to push back, but there was nothing she could say. The proof was all around her. The perfectly curated menu, the wine list, the impeccable service. Every part of this restaurant bore my touch. My vision. I turned to David, my voice softer now but no less firm. "You said I wasn't cut out for your world. That I didn't have the ambition." His face paled. "I wonder, David, do you still believe that? His lips parted, but no words came out. For so long, I had waited for him to see me. To truly see me. And now, as the truth unraveled in front of him, I realized something important. I no longer needed him to. I stood up, adjusting the hem of my dress, feeling more powerful than I ever had. Dinner is on me tonight, I said, my voice carrying through the hushed dining room. Enjoy the meal, and next time, when you assume you know someone's worth, maybe think twice. Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked away, leaving them with their shattered assumptions and the undeniable truth. I was no longer the quiet one in the background. I was the woman who had built her own empire, and they would never look at me the same way again. As I stepped away from the table, I felt a profound sense of liberation wash over me. For years, I had lived in the shadow of my husband and his family, quietly accepting their dismissive glances, their condescending remarks, their assumption that I was nothing more than David's wife. But tonight, that illusion shattered. Tonight, they finally saw me, not as an accessory to their son's success, but as a woman who had built something of her own. I didn't turn back. I didn't need to. Their silence spoke louder than any words ever could. I could feel their gazes on my back, heavy with realization, regret, maybe even admiration, but none of that mattered anymore. David would have to face the truth, that while he was busy chasing his ambitions, I had built my own legacy. That while he had underestimated me, I had proven myself beyond any doubt. And now, he had to live with the consequences of never truly seeing me. For the first time in years, I wasn't seeking their approval. I wasn't waiting for validation. I knew my worth, and that was enough. As I walked through the doors of my own restaurant, stepping into the cool night air, I smiled to myself. This wasn't the end of the story, it was only the beginning. Life has a way of teaching us unexpected lessons. Sometimes, the people who dismiss us the most are the ones who end up realizing, too late, just how wrong they were. And I was finally free. If you enjoyed this story of strength and self-discovery, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring life stories.